Hi, welcome to Mami's Academy. This time we will be dealing with implication and by-implication in logical reasoning. Implication, you see, in conditional statements, the use of if is prominent. Let two, let two statements be represented by P and Q as usual, as we have been doing from the previous video. Now, if P and Q can be written as P implies Q. P is called an antecedent. This is an antecedent. So while Q is consequent, C is consequent. The antecedent can be true, but does that mean that the consequent is true? The antecedent can be false, but does that mean that the consequence will be false? Let's see the truth table to see how this can be resolved. So let's go to our truth table. Truth table. So let's come to our truth table. Let's say statement P stays here and statement Q stays here. So let's see what P implies Q would tell us. P implies Q. So let's see if statement P is true. Statement Q and statement Q is true and statement Q is true. So would P implies Q? I want us to do this with an example. So let's see. If a dog barks, then a cock crows. If a dog barks, then a cock crows. That is true. So if a dog barks, then a cock crows. The consequence is true. Therefore, when the first statement is true, meaning that the antecedent is true, the consequence is true, then that the antecedent implies the consequence is true. It's true. But what happens when an antecedent is false? Let's take antecedent false, but the consequent is true. But the consequent is true. A dumb person can talk if a musician can sing. A dumb person can talk if a musician can sing. So definitely a musician can sing, but the first one is false. So I am dealing with the consequence. The consequence is true. So this will be true. But what happens when the antecedent is true, but the consequence is false? This time, let's reverse that statement I said earlier. If a musician can sing, then a dumb person can talk. If a musician can sing, then a dumb person can talk. So let's see. If a musician can sing is true, yes, a musician should be able to sing. The dumb person can talk. That is false. A dumb person cannot talk. The person is dumb because the person cannot talk. So the person is called a dumb because he cannot talk. So that is false. So now that the consequence is false, then we can tell that the antecedent that implies the consequence is false. So this will be false. But what happens when both are false? When both are false. When both are false. So what happens when both are false? When both are false, let's take for an example, 2 times 3 equals to 5. So 3 times 2 equals to 5 too. Can you imagine? The two are false. So definitely that is true. So the consequence is, the antecedent precedes the consequence, meaning that the antecedent is false, the consequence is false. So the answer here is true. The answer here is true. I mean, our judgment here is true. Why is it true? The one that precedes the other one is false. So the one that it produces is false. Definitely, it is true that that antecedent precedes the consequence. Are you getting it now? So if a false antecedent precedes a true consequence, it is true. But if a true antecedent precede a false consequence, it is false. So in all the cases of antecedent and consequence, as it implies, we have three truth and one false. Are you getting it now? So when a truth proceed a falsehood, then we say it is false. So when a false now precedes a truth, we can have it to be true. So we have considered some of these examples. Let's see another example. Ade is very brilliant and he won a scholarship. So we can see that the first one that is true can imply the second one that is true. So definitely our judgment that P implies Q is true. But if Ade is dull and Ade won a scholarship, it could be true. Are you getting it now? So it does not mean that that antecedent precedes the consequence, but the consequence is true. But the consequence is true. Good. Now, what if both are wrong? That is, Ade is dumb. Ade is dumb. Ade did not win a scholarship. That is true because the antecedent is proceed. The antecedent proceed the consequence. So, if Ade is dumb and Ade did not win scholarship, the statement we are going to have is a true statement. So that is that about conditional statement, which uses implication. So the other part of this implication that tell us another thing is by implication. What happens in by implication? Implication is just if and only if. So if and only if that P is P, Q is Q. If and only if Q is Q, P is P. So let's see. Let P be a statement and Q be another statement. So in by implication, we are going to have something like this. We are going to have P. So it's a relationship, close relationship. So if P is, then Q is. So let's say P be a statement and Q is another statement. So P by implies, that is if and only if P, then Q is true. So if P and Q are both true or both false, otherwise it is false. I'm saying that P implies Q is true if P and Q are both true or both false. Otherwise it is false. What am I talking about? Let's see the truth table to talk about it with examples. Truth table, true table, value table. So we have statement and we have statement Q. So if statement P is true and statement Q is true, what happens that P by implies? So by implication we say it is if and only if. So if and only if P, Q can only occur. So if P is true, Q is true, P implies Q is true. So T, when T is true and the Q is false, definitely the P by implies Q is F. Is F. Thirdly, when P is F and the Q is T, definitely T is definitely P by implies Q is false because we have an atom of false. So if P is false, definitely Q should be false. But if P is telling us that it implies Q, then that statement is false. So let's take the last one. What if both of them are false? So just like the other one, when both of them are false, then it is true. Are you getting it now? So it's as simple as that. This is by implication. So the difference there is that in implication and by implication is that when a force suggests a truth, we consider the truth to be true. Are you getting it now? So what here in by implication, because it's if and only if that the other can be correct, can be true. So otherwise it is false. So that is that. Let's take some examples to explain this by implication. A fish will swim if and only if a bird can fly. So it has to do with their mode of, should I say, mode of features or mode of movement. So we know that a bird has wings, so it has something to move in the air, and we know that fish has some things, streamlines and other things to swim in the. So if we are now saying that if a bird, that is a fish, if a fish will swim if only and we are not saying a fish will swim if and only if a bird can fly. Example 2, I can pass the exam if and only if I cannot read my books. So how do you see this one? I can pass the exam if and only if I cannot read my books. So you can see that the first statement is true, but the by implication is wrong. Are you getting it now? It's false. So you cannot pass your exam if you cannot read your book. So we will not judge that, okay, this is a false statement. The combined statement now is false. Now, let's take another example. Cairo is in Nigeria if and only if London is in UK. So you can see that both are false. Cairo is in Nigeria, so this is a true statement. Are you getting it? Cairo is in Nigeria if and only if London is in UK.
I believe you understood everything we did today. See you in the next video. Bye bye.